Bye-bye.
شكرا.
Hello.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, Mr. Gerd, Leonhard. How are you?
Doing all right?
Sorry for cutting you off this interesting talk. I got inspired by some questions, actually.
Very good.
Hi, Mr. Robert Weerwolf. How are you?
That's the whole purpose, right? To get inspired. The whole purpose of the conference.
Of course. Such an interesting talk. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if Mr. Gord still.
No, I think he might be off the Zoom.
I think he has some technical issues, I guess.
Well, no, not necessarily, because it is his Zoom session, right?
Oh yeah, I have no idea. I just received the link.
So if he pushes end of the Zoom meeting, the Zoom ends.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say. If you're at a conference and the conference ends, the conference doesn't end. The end of the conference is the start of a conversation, of a dialogue. That is how you need to look at conferences. It's where you get together, where different perspectives are being shared, and you start to think, your brain cells start to work. That's the whole purpose.
100%. 100%. It's interesting actually to have you with us in this discussion as well. We'd like to have your insight and feedback on everything we're going to be sharing on this chat. So why not start talking to you? Okay. I have actually a short list of questions. It's not going to be a list of questions, more of a conversation talking about this conference. And let's start with the objective of the conference. Okay, you know, it's directed towards supporting an integrated model of interactive and collaborative technological nature among academia, industry, and government. So how do you see this happening in the IEEE GCAIoT with its technical, industry, and government track?
Yeah, I think there are a number of, I say that, elements coming together in your conference setting, and which also goes back to the people behind it and what's happening there. And Gerd mentioned that, for example, and it's also in various media being expressed. For example, the UAE does think about how do we go about if oil is not our mainstream of income anymore, which is a good thing. So they are looking ahead, trying to look beyond the curve and craft a road how to get there. And that's a good thing. But it's not something that people often do. Or if they do, they get stuck at the situation of what I was mentioning. We want X. That's nice, you want X, but do you have the abilities to have X? So you need to go back and understand what are the capabilities necessary in order to achieve that objective. And then even then, if you have those two, but you still don't do shit, excusez le mot, they say in French.
No,
the only reason when something becomes successful if you actually do it. So only talking and writing about it will not help you. You will have to actually do it. Get down into in the mud and work. And that is what I perceive from the folks behind what was the artist formerly known as GCAIoT and now GCAIoT. Is what's happening, and that dynamic, me watching that dynamic thrills me. Then I think, wow, that's a group of people I want to support. Henceforth, why we as IEEE Technology Engineering Management Society are supporting this conference. And so the same holds within IEEE. IEEE does understand it has a societal impact, a large societal impact. If not only because of all of the technology as described in all of the papers from all of the conferences and journals. So you have a huge responsibility in order to ensure the right dialogue happens on all those new insights. And sometimes you indeed need a crisis. It's like classic change management. Unless there is a burning house, nothing happens. Now we have a burning house. Now we have COVID-19. Now shit happens.
I'm going to tackle that as well in the talk as well. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, and let's zoom out a little bit from this conference in specific. But how going through this virtual experience in 2020 was just crazy. And how do you think the technical conferences would look like in 2021?
All right, guys, sorry.
No worries.
No worries.
Welcome back.
We were having a post-session interview discussion, I guess.
yeah, we're gonna have an interesting discussion now between both of you. I can just ask the question one more time so that you can like share your insights.
Okay.
So we're just talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and the case, what's happening nowadays, given that we're living the virtual experience in 2020. So I was asking, how do you think would the technical conferences look like in 2021?
That's a good one.
Yes.
Let me just hang on. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be seeing hybrid version, because we do have that almost it's a human need to truly act. And while we can interact in this way, it is still different from if we are in a single room in a setting, because right now hereafter we couldn't beer haben, Gerd. We can't have a beer after, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you can't drink beer many places anyway. But I think really what's happening is that we're going to go to a hybrid world. Because we know the technology is going to work amazingly well, and this is only the beginning, right? What we're doing now. Just wait for augmented virtual reality, mixed reality, holograms. I'm going to travel to Dubai in a hologram in 3 years, buy a ticket from Swiss or from Lufthansa. But on the other hand, every time we connect digitally, we want to connect in real life. That's just human, right? But we're going to be a lot more careful about where and how and for what the cost is. So I think the crazy flying that I did for the last 10 years, I flew almost 1 million miles a year, 100 events. I had several around the world tickets several times a year. That's not coming back. So I think the hybrid stuff is staying, but it's going to make the human contact even more important.
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about technology. It came up to my mind that how can we make the artificial intelligence beneficial to us, and how can it be used to complement human intelligence instead of eradicating our capabilities and skills? How is that doable?
Well, it's like all technology, you can take a hammer if you're a carpenter, and you can kill somebody with your hammer, right? You can build a house. But as a carpenter, you wouldn't look at the hammer and you would say, "Oh, I love my hammer," or it's the house that you build, not the hammer, that matters, right? And when we have technology like we have now, and very soon quantum computing, Internet of Things, nanotechnology, robots in my bloodstream, and so on, then we have to ask the question as to who's the tool and who's the purpose. Right?
Goes back to the ethics and the governance question.
Yeah,
like if like Elon Musk, Neuralink, right? Same thing. The idea of connecting the brain with the computer, with an implant or several implants, right? I think that's a great idea if you're quadriplegic, because then you can walk again, if you have $2 million. But would it be a great idea for the average human is to basically, let's say, download your memory? Which he said is the goal, right? I think that's a very bad idea. It's like, one is medical and the other one is gigantomaniac, right? Basically.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Gerd, that's always I always say the trouble with science fiction movies really is they become truth. Shit happens.
Well,
and we did have the one all-encompassing brain. What was it called again in Star Trek, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, it's about choices that we make.
Yes.
For example, I think we should invent anything we can to solve cancer, and for that we need to put all the DNA in the cloud. Clearly, we should definitely, even if we can only save one person from getting cancer. But on the other hand, I would want that information on the cloud to be safe and secure and under strict guidelines, so we cannot clone people if we wish. And that is clearly something where, in the end, it's the role of government is to negotiate between science and technology and industry and the needs of the people.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, then we're in deep trouble, because then we're going to see the thing that we have with Facebook now, we're going to see that times 500 on every tangent of our society if we don't start looking at this.
Yeah. Yeah, when we're talking about skills, actually, many people have this worry and fear of being replaced by robots or by AI and all these. So if we can use it for our benefit, then in this case, if we're forced to leave our jobs, let's say in the future, just to be replaced by AI, how do we reply to that? What do we do about that? What do you think? Will it actually replace us, in other words?
The answer is really simple. If you work like a robot will take your job. Right? And even worse, and we talk about education. If you learn like a robot, you will never have a job. Right? Because in the end, what robots and technology can do, it's vastly superior logical thinking and zeros and ones, binary information. But life isn't binary. Humans aren't binary. So we're multinary, which means that we see the world like this, right? Instantly. And it's not logical sometimes. Well, it's definitely not logical, and it's not efficient, right? But nevertheless, it works. Yeah. And I think that is our jobs in the future are going to be the jobs that machines can't do.
The creative industry is safe, I guess, because AI is not able to come up with creative stuff yet. Maybe in terms of writing, journalism, creating art, or yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I would almost say it's a state of mind. I don't mind AI, and I have no fear whatsoever that AI will take my job. Worse, for the past 30 years, and people in the industry can tell you, I've been advocating that my job it is to make myself obsolete each and every time. In each and every project and program I engage, my task is it to make myself obsolete. Because why? Because I'm trying to facilitate a change that does not require me continuously. I'm only the facilitator to make the change. Therefore, I gladly make myself obsolete. That's my whole purpose. And that's a state of mind. Now, many think, and that's a state of mind of how you perceive your work or how you perceive your added value to society. That is where the real change is needed, I guess.
Yeah, and of course the other thing is,
Gerd, feel free to disagree.
No, I totally agree. I think that the other thing is that we are thinking of work in a very narrow way, especially as a man, an older man. You're thinking of work as being the purpose and, of course, money, right? And all of that will change dramatically. I think in the near future, if we play our cards right, we may only end up working 2 hours a day or less for the same money, right? Because the problem is not so much that we need work to keep ourselves busy, but we have to redistribute the benefits, right? Yeah. So right now you see a curve like this. It's really across the world. Productivity is increasing like this because of machines and smart machines, right? But worker benefits are staying the same or even declining, right? And why is that? Well, because we're not giving the money that is made on the top back to the people who are actually doing the work, right? Yeah. Right. And that is exactly what's happening with the big tech companies and the internet companies. That the average Facebook employee makes $287,000 a year. Yeah. I mean, talk about inequality, right?
Yeah. And we threw away what the real purpose of money was, right? The purpose of money was to facilitate exchange of goods, because otherwise I would have to give you 10 sheep and you had to give me 3 pigs. And to circumvent a problem we figured out, we invented money. It was a concept.
Yeah, and also, when you talk about work, it's important to remember that people get crazy all about AI and robotics and automation, but the fact is we do not have a smart machine at this point that can do anything like a human in any much the same way. For example, driving. Tesla just got rid of their automated driving division, right? Because the machine cannot drive like a human. It drives great for what it's worth, but it does not drive like a human, right? And for example, journalism, you can ask GPT-3 to write an article. The Guardian has done that, has done a very good job writing an article. I mean, in 5 years, I can speak to my Westwatch. I can say, write a good piece about digital ethics, and it will do it, right? But this is kind of like, it's like online dating, you can date as much as you want online, but the action happens offline. Right? And you can't substitute that. The important part happens there between people. It does not happen in the data stream. Yeah.
True.
But how long, Gerd, how long until we reach the state of, suddenly remember what it was called, the collective? Remember the collective?
Yes. Well,
I think they're still lacking the emotional aspect of human beings, including our beliefs, our morals, and everything that play a role in how we do things in life. So now we're gonna jump to the conference itself and be more specific about this day. We're gonna, of course, that the objective of this conference is directed towards supporting the integrated model of an interactive and collaborative technological nature among academia, industry, and government. I was just asking Mr. Robert this question, but I'm gonna ask you now, how do you see this happening in the IEEE GCAIoT with its technical, industry, and government track?
Well, that's a very good question. I think I'm always struggling with this kind of keeping the academics and the research and the scientists and technologists separate from the other tracks, I think it's good that we're not doing that this year and that we're having this discussion, because in the end, well, until now, it was kind of a separate debate about how it works or if it can work, and governance was always there. But now we're reaching this point to where, science fiction is becoming science fact, right?
Right.
And this is that is the question that IEEE events have to ask. What do we want to be fact? And what do we want to remain fiction, even if it's possible?
I cannot disclose here about things, but I do think IEEE requires to reinvent and re-innovate itself too. And I'll leave to that, because otherwise we'll get into that.
Well, I think it's quite clear what's happening is that all of the bodies that deal with technical standards and technical issues and engineering issues and stuff, they are now being drawn into the debate of purpose and the underlying logic. I mean, you see what happened with Google. When the AI person, what was the name, Gerd, the AI scientist who got fired from Google last week, right? 5,000 people have signed the complaint against Google because clearly she was working on very, very important issues for the company and said something critical about being Black and being a minority, being a woman, and about AI doing a bad job with that. And boom, she's gone, right? And this kind of thing will not stand in the future, because it makes people wonder about who we are giving authority to.
Sure. Okay, let's continue with the conference for this year. It's a virtual conference, and I'm pretty sure that you have attended tons of conferences this year, right, virtually. So I need you to share with me the most significant factors, perhaps, or elements that made this conference in particular interesting or special, in your opinion.
Well, I think you did something interesting, but also daring, of course. You start your conference with a relatively new young platform, Eventus, without having sufficient proof or experience in how it's actually working. So you run into troubles. Yeah, well, so shit happens, right? But you learn, and that's the whole purpose, I guess. If you take that stance, of how to improve and how to learn from whatever goes wrong, you can improve. But that again takes an attitude, wanting to do that. So you need to engage also with the folks in the back end on how to ensure things work. I mean, we did something I hadn't seen before. We used Zoom to be as a live feed into Eventus. And then to be streamed outside. I thought that was tricky with 5 minutes before start.
Well, I've seen much worse. I've seen much worse. That's for sure. You know, I think it's a very good try because, you know, we're not going to go back to pre-pandemic habits just because we can. Some of them we will go back, of course, to restaurants and things like that eventually. But I think our behavior has changed in terms of how we learn, where we travel, what we do, who we speak to. And generally speaking, it's been an opening period. You know, I can tell you, I have talked to many more people this year than I would have ever talked to before, just because I wasn't traveling. Right? And all of a sudden, I'm talking to people that I never got to talk before because I didn't have the time. You know? And of course, you know, I did talk to other people at the events, which was kind of a catch-22. But yeah, generally speaking, I think the biggest issue we're having right now, and this is, I think, where the event comes in, is that we're all feeling a little bit isolated. You know? Sitting at home and sipping our tea and looking at screens. You know? And hopefully this is something that will be part of the event in a mixed mode, you know, going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'm going to grab this opportunity to talk about Expo. We cannot not talk about Expo. So I need to ask you, in your opinion, how important it is for such conferences to take part in Expo, because we are participating in Expo. So we'll start with Mr. Robert. Perhaps has something to share with us.
That very much depends. So the real answer is it depends, because it depends on what you want to achieve with it. Because of course, co-locating with Expo has an added value in terms of its draw to people, to attendees, which is true for the physical situation. So it really much depends on what you want to achieve. Of course, me personally, I would love to join while you're at Expo to make use of the opportunity to visit Expo. But that's different from the question you're asking. Notice the difference? So it really depends on what you guys want to achieve, how you see that becoming fruitful or value. And then I think it makes sense for your whole region, your MENA region, to have the conference co-located and then truly create something creatively. Henceforth, we shouldn't be talking just in one direction. We should have workshops. We should have real problems to address where we can then bring the knowledge together to do something with it. Be creative.
Well, I think we're clearly going to see an environment in the future, in the very near future, where we can have a mixed mode event in amazing ways. For example, I don't know if you know Tony Roberts, the guru, the change guru. He did a really funny thing the other day. He put together an online event, and he had in a huge hall like 5,000 TV screens around himself, where everybody was contributing virtually, right? So I foresee at the Expo, where we're going to sit in a room and debate and talk to people, and then there'll be people piping in from all over the room at different places that can't afford to be there, right? That will take a lot of moderation. And we'll see holograms, I'm sure, virtual reality setups. And this is a lot to get used to, just like we had to get used to Zoom. Yeah. But you know, I think that's a great point for the Expo to show all these things and to bring it all together. So it's probably good timing.
I would like to thank you very much for giving us your time. It was such an insightful chat. Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure talking to both of you.
You're most welcome.
To our end of this conversation. Well, I hope it was sweet and brief.
Perfect.
Sorry, I signed off too early. I gotta go have breakfast now. So
yeah, me too.
All right, guys.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.